Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is all about the rebuild of my Oxy5 RC helicopter. I got this helicopter as a used helicopter, so first I took the whole helicopter apart, cleaned everything and rebuilt it. The first video was all about disassembling the helicopter, and in this video you can see the whole mechanics build up. There is no programming or detail wiring, but the build up, the mechanics build up, and installation of servos, motor and ESC, and also some tips I did for cleaning and some changes I did on the ESC wiring. This is what will happen today. Let's jump into the build steps. First of all, I had to clean all the used parts. For the grease I had to remove from the gears, I used the blade and the towel to remove all the grease from the main gear and the pinion gear to make it all look nice and clean again, to remove all the grease remains. Also on the frame parts there was a lot of grease from the gears, so I took some thinner and a towel and cleaned all the frame parts too. Then on the screws, some of the screws were with massive loads of Loctite, so I used a thread cutter and cleaned all the screws which were full of Loctite. Like this, the screws work much better if you want to screw them back into the parts. Then it was time to start the build. I started on the tail boom or on the tail rotor. So it's very important for every single screw on an RC helicopter that you use Loctite. On the build you won't see Loctite on every screw, just because I wanted to make the build not that boring. So you can see only a few screws where I put on the Loctite, but I actually put it on Loctite on every single screw on the build. You will see some reminders where I show the using of the Loctite again, but it's really important to use Loctite on every single screw. So this is the assembling of the tail rotor head. Everything went smooth, all the clean parts were nice to assemble, no problem so far. Tail rotor shaft, it's very important that you install that pin perfectly centered because of avoiding vibrations. If it's not perfectly centered, you will have unnecessary vibrations on your tail rotor assembly. tail rotor shaft where I had some serious play, so I used a 1/10 of millimeter shim to reduce the tail rotor shaft play to perfect minimum. Then I assembled the front end of the tail boom. First it was time for the servo mount, and then it's very important that you twist your belt to the right if you watch the tail boom in flight direction, 90 degrees. So like this you make sure that your tail boom, your tail rotor will spin in the right direction. Then it was time to align the main frame. For this I had to unscrew the main frame screws to release all the tension on the frame, and then after releasing all the screws I had to push down the whole frame to align everything perfect. For this I also had to install the main rotor shaft to perfectly align all the parts, and after pushing all down and perfectly aligned the frame, I had to tighten all the screws to make a perfect fit of all the parts. To eliminate unnecessary play, you have to release the screws which keep the shaft, the main rotor shaft, in place, and push the bearing down against the main gear. But after this I had still some serious play, so I also used some shims to reduce the play to the minimum. To tighten up the drive belt, I had to release the screws on the tail boom, pull the tail boom backwards and tighten up the screws again. When you install the O-rings for the center hub of the main rotor head, it's very important that you install the exact same O-rings with the same shore on both sides to avoid asymmetrical dampening of the main rotor head. install the Swash plate, make sure that the ball bearings are on the back side of the Swash plate. Then I had to solve an issue with the Canopy lock system. That was some massive play, so I installed some O-rings to eliminate the play to zero. Then I also removed the protection stuff on the servos. I just wanted to build the helicopter as light as possible, as clean as possible. So I removed every unnecessary gram on the previous build. The shrink tube of the motor looked pretty bad, so I removed the red one and also reduced the length of the wires because the uninsulated part of the wires was way too long. So I unsoldered the connectors, shortened the wire a bit and resoldered everything. Just important to keep all the 3 cables at the exact same length. Wiring of the ESC was also way too heavy and too complicated and unnecessary connectors on the wires, so I removed the wires and all the connectors which were installed because I wanted to install my own connector system and also wanted to reduce the wires on the battery side to the absolute minimum just to keep the helicopter as light as possible. After resoldering and putting on new shrink tube, everything was ready to install and make it look nice and clean. To install the ESC, I used shock absorbing double-sided tape. Then I soldered on my own connector system to connect the battery to the ESC, checked how long the minimum of the battery cable should be on the ESC side, and cut them to length and soldered on my own connector system. After putting on the new shrink tube, the installation of the ESC and the wiring looked nice and clean, and the build was done so far. This is it for today's video. Thanks a lot for watching. More stuff about the Oxy5 helicopter will follow later on this channel. See you in the next one. Happy flying. Bye bye.